Today's video is going to be on how sponge filters work. I'm basically going to take apart a sponge filter and show you how to set it up step through step. And I apologize if you already know how to do this stuff. I know some of my subscribers already know how to do this, but I've gotten the question multiple times, so we're going to do it. And this is a fry tank behind me. A lot of these are Texas fry and Firemouth fry. And here is a sponge filter fully in use. There is the unit itself, and it's connected to the air line running through there. But we will get to that. Let's flip the camera and take a look at these sponge filters. What do you think? What do you think, Avery? Oh. Alright, so let's dive right into this. This is just your generic sponge filter. This is like the medium-sized ones that you'll buy. And these were roughly between $5 to $10 depending on where you get them. I know some people buy them from China and wait 3 to 4 weeks to get them extra cheap. But yeah, this is known as the lift tube, and the airline actually connects right in this little spot, as you can see right there. And we're going to pull it apart here just so you guys can see the guts of this thing. There's basically an inside tube within the sponge itself where the water pulls into it. And this is the bottom. This all interconnects here. This is what it would look like with the sponge on it, except I don't have the sponge on it, essentially. So, as you can see, you can definitely tell where the water would be pulled inside the lift tube, and that's exactly what happens. So this is what it would look like completely set up in your tank with the sponge on, except I don't have it on for just educational purposes so you can see it, and the water lifts up through the lift tube. And trying to think here. So we'll take this off. When you're installing it, all you have to really do is put the air line right in this and make sure that the lift tube is over it, essentially. So let's just put it back together here. Actually, yeah, see, all this comes apart, and you will get better with them the more you take them apart. And once you like take it apart yourself, you will definitely understand. I'm a really visual learner, so I almost needed it in my own hands to understand it. But basically, I've said basically like 200 times, I apologize. This is what it looks like going back together. And all these connectors just connect together. And this is how you set it up. Put the lift tube over the air line. This is a really piece of old airline. You will commonly see that's an issue. If your airline starts to get super worn out over time, I usually just get rid of it and use some new airline, because you can see right here in the video, this is exactly what's happening. Because you want this stuff to be really tight and essentially airtight. So, and if it's super loose, just cut the airline and just reconnect with a new piece. So, but yeah, the lift tube, then you just squeeze on the lift tube there and literally hook it up to your air pump and you're ready to go. So it will look exactly like this going into your tank. And again, here's that 75-gallon tank we were looking at. This is what it looks like, identical to it being used in your tank. So, and if you're there are different types of sponges you will find out. I'm a huge fan. If you follow my other videos, that's all I use is sponge filters, so I'm like a sponge filter geek. But there are different types of sponges. There's like a polishing sponge, and then there's more of a high flow sponge. It really just comes down to how porous the actual sponge is itself. And that's what reflects how much water comes through it and at like what rate. So as you can see there, that's a super fine like polishing sponge, and that one's a little more porous, and it's going to let more water come through and probably have more of a what am I trying to say here? Biological filtration is what I was trying to say. Sorry. I was at a loss for words there. What I was trying to say is like some of these sponges, like a more finer sponge is going to be like more of a mechanical filtration because you're basically removing super tiny particulates from the water, whereas a super porous sponge is going to be more of that biological filtration because it's going to be moving more water essentially. Some of the you will find that after you use sponge filters for a while, there's some accessories to go with them. For example, sometimes you'll get sick of the bottom of the sponge filters being clogged, so a lot of people will throw what is known as an air stone inside of the sponge filter itself, and that works a lot better. The smaller and the more amount of bubbles you have pushing through that intake tube is going to be the more water you push through it. Another accessory is just going to be a little valve. Sometimes when you splice different air lines going into sponge filters, you're going to need valves because they have a different rate in which they let water come through the, or not water. I'm getting angry. I can't speak. The valve is used to restrict certain amounts of air going to each sponge filter because it's a sponge and one might let more water come through than the other essentially. So here's a little different looking of a valve. See the screw? I deal with all this stuff, and you might find that you'll geek out with sponge filters or you won't. So this is basically just how sponge filters work and how you set them up. As far as the air pump goes, any simple air pump will work. I can't speak today. I should just probably quit making videos today and just maybe like go read a book or something. Any air pump will work. Oh look, what do you know? There's one behind me again. Sponge filter. I love these things, guys. Any air pump works. I'm having trouble speaking today. It's because I'm an idiot. I don't know what's going on. I didn't sleep good tonight. I've been dealing a lot with my leaking tanks, and I don't know. Maybe I just need to take the rest of the day off. Maybe I should do that. I need to cut some new lids for this 6-foot tank. It's always tough finding lids for aquariums because glass lids are super expensive. I have more videos on that too. So, all right, guys, sponge filters and how to set them up. Send me your questions if you have any regarding sponge filters. I always get asked what are the best ones. In my personal opinion, it is the Hydro High Flows, hands down, and that's what these look like. It's basically the Aqua Clear 110 sponge. It's like I think it's a 20 or 30 ppm sponge, and it's a high flow sponge, so it lets more water go through and it catches larger particulates like larger pieces of detritus. You can actually see when these things get dirty. Oh, hey buddy, hey, you want some attention? Yep. You can actually see how dirty it gets on the outside. So actually I want to show you another sponge filter. You'll start having like weird problems with them in time. This one needs a cleaning, as you can see, and it starts to do like this weird where the air escapes out the side. And I mean, sponge filters, it's not rocket science. They're super simple, so just remember to keep it simple and squeeze them out. You may have to change the air line, may have to change the air stone with time. All right, I'm gonna quit babbling. Woo!